Hey folks, welcome to the Mobius Partners Groovers Talk Tech podcast. My name is Scott King, your podcast host and CTO here at Mobius. Shout out to our listeners. You're really going to like today's topic. One of the goals of our podcast is focusing on content our audience can benefit from. Today's no exception from that. Our topic for today, IT as an enabler in a world of mergers and acquisitions. Specifically, we're going to talk about the healthcare industry. We have a special guest joining us today, John Ragsdale, founder and CEO of theAppPlace, aka Tap Innovations. Mobius has had the privilege of working with John on past projects, and through the execution of these projects, we've witnessed John's ability to elevate his team's value to the business through a streamlined process that produces results. We'd like to share today the key enablers John has fine-tuned through the years. Welcome, John. Thanks for joining
Glad to
us.
be here.
And yeah, thanks for joining me. And please let our listeners know, get a little bit more on the background, right? I kind of moved through that pretty quick, and what you guys are up to at Tap Innovations, and then we can get on topic here.
No, you bet. Appreciate it. Glad to be with you guys. Love doing things like this. Love sharing and taking my experience and helping others. Right, I'm a big fan of that. In terms of my background, just real quick, been in IT 25, 26 years. The last 12, 13 have been a CIO largely in the healthcare space. But in particular, as you noted, I've been a CIO in the private equity healthcare space, going all the way back to 2017, and even some other M&A activity in prior years. So I have a ton of experience working in that particular space. I've recently left the CIO role, and I formed a company 4 years ago, and now am the CEO of Tap Innovations, as you described just a minute ago. So super excited about taking Tap to another level. But again, love to just share, my knowledge and experience in this space of M&A, healthcare, private equity space, and as you noted, really positioning IT as an enabler and not a bottleneck, right?
Yep.
So glad to be here.
Awesome. No, thanks for that. Glad to have you for sure. Yeah, just jumping in on topic here. Let's talk a little bit about just some of those key enablers, right? What were some of the critical factors that you found along the way that really accelerated that, and sharing some of those ideas or viewpoints with the audience.
Yeah, I'll say it's a little bit cliche, right? I've always approached IT from a people, a process. I always throw information in there. Some people do it, people, process, technology, but I put information in there too, and end it with technology. And I think that order is really important. So when you look at the things that are really critical to being that enabler, I think number one, having the right people, right? And I approach my team building and team growing in a hybrid method, right? So when I say hybrid method, we've got some people that are permanent resources, right, staff, and then others that are, fractional contractors, consultants, partners, in that like. So a hybrid approach is really critical, but the people is really critical, right? Getting the right people on the bus, on the train, right? Pick your analogy, is so critical to taking M&A activity to another level, and again, being that enabler. I'll say the next big piece is that next step over from people process, having a really solid process. It's great if you got great people, but if you don't have a good process, if you haven't thought through step one through step 38 or whatever that is, of how do we go from hey, we're going to buy this new practice, or hey, we're going to buy this new thing, step one being that step, and then hey, we need to bring them onto our technology platform, our applications, all those components, right? If you haven't thought through that and thought about the critical components in the right order, then it's going to be really challenging. So definitely people and process are critical, to being that enabler.
No, that's great. I mean, so many, decisions are made, and in IT, we like to focus on the technology, right? And so many people lead with that technology, make decisions around technology, and then try to come back around on the process side or getting the right people in place, and it doesn't usually lead to successful outcomes, right?
It
So
doesn't.
so important, and I like the way that you started too. It's really is about the people, and you get, people is it's a happy wife, happy life type of mentality, right? I mean, you get people in a good place and understand the vision and where you're headed. Totally on board with that. Great insights there. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, are there things, just organizationally or that you do? What are some of the things that you found work around that people conversation? Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, great question. I think, in the M&A world, right, one of the biggest challenges is, especially when you're looking at technology implementation, right, you've got all this changeover that you have to make, and you want to make the change without disrupting the business, right?
Yeah.
The business wants to keep going on. They want to keep making money. They don't want you to take a day or a week, right? Because that's revenue, that's money. So doing as much planning ahead of time to really plan, hey, I got to do this work after hours, or I got to do this work on weekends. And if you've got a lot of M&A activity spread over multiple years, finding people that want to do that, right, is really challenging because
Yeah.
that's a quick burnout process, right? If I've got to work every weekend and even on the holidays, and that's just tough. So having the right resource pools, and when I say resource pools, right, for some of this work, leveraging a partner and leveraging multiple partners, I found to be really, really critical so
Hmm.
that, hey, I've got one group over here, working up in, Northern Virginia. I've got one group over here working in mid Florida, and they can run in parallel, right? And we're not going to get burned out because we got two separate teams. So taking that approach and being able to be super flexible and even to be able to continually, add new people to the team, and some people are going to leave. And so that's where this people and process really come together. If you've got a really good process that you got good training and good documentation on step one through step 38 or whatever,
Yeah.
then when you do bring on somebody new, right, they can more quickly come on board and be productive. So it's that combination of people and process in this fast-paced, M&A world. Again, especially if it's going for 2 or 3 months, that's easier. But if you're talking about, hey, we're going to be doing this for 2 or 3 years, growing from 15 locations to 100 across 8, 10, 12 states, right? You got to have that good combination of people and processes.
What have you found to be, that motivational factor for the people? Is there things that you've incorporated into that? Because, like you said, it's weekends, it's not the fun stuff. How you injecting the fun in there, and maybe sharing in that in the wins for the business, or just incentives along the way. I mean, that's important, and it's not always super easy to figure out which knobs to turn there, right? But just interested in your thoughts
Yeah,
on that. Yeah.
no, it's a great question. A core value set that I personally created 20 some odd years ago, for my teams, and I've literally just carried it from team to team, is this. It's a four-word acronym, and it's ownership, thoroughness, communication, and closure. OTCC. And I use that in all that we do, and I'll highlight one of the C's, the communication piece, um, because that's so vital to, you're right, keeping the resource engagement is what I call it, right? Keeping the resources engaged even at 2 a.m. in the morning, or right,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
those frustration levels can get really high. But communication is really key, and I'll give you just one example that really helped bring the team together, especially early on when the process was new, the people were new, we were all kind of getting to know each other. We literally had a 15 to 20 minute daily stand up, and it was at the end of the day. It was from 5 to 5:30, and we all got on the call. And yeah, it was a lot of people. We, at some points we had 20, 30 people, but we were really efficient with the meeting, and we literally went person to person, and we said, hey, you got 1 to 2 minutes to share what was successful or what was challenging today, and what is your plan for tomorrow, right? And we just literally went around the room. Now we use Microsoft Teams, so we were able to collaborate, across locations and states. But it was so effective. And then it's funny, everybody got to know each other, right? So that's just a different level to work together, right? It's one
Yeah.
thing, hey, we're be showing up and working on workstations all day. But if I know this person, I've seen them, and I've talked to them, it was just a game changer from a communication standpoint. Brought the team together. We did some other things, but that was one that people really liked it. I mean, they actually look forward to coming on the call every day because that one, they got the chance to talk about what they were doing today, and
Yeah.
it gave me a chance, right, as an IT leader, to see, at a quick, broad scale, all the things that are going on. And it also gave me a forum to say, hey, look, you know, yeah, that's great, but hey, let's all make sure we're doing X, Y, and Z differently, right? Or, hey, here's a correction, or, here's an attaboy, right? You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Hey, here's a praise, good job. So those kinds of, it was just a good forum for that.
Yeah, just kind of celebrating it as a team. I know at Mobius culture, a big part of what we do here as well. And there's always that aspect of kind of bringing the personal in, right? We're all working, countless hours, right? And just being able to take a step back, and sometimes it just goes on for much longer, but there's always that light at the end of the tunnel where you could see, for many of us in this profession, it's that problem getting solved, right? And the outcome of what's at task, and seeing your work kind of come to fruition, and having we kind of use the family atmosphere, but it truly is like, hey, somebody's unable to put that extra effort in right now, and the rest of the team jumping in right behind them, and filling a void while they're taking care of what they need to take care of and what's top of mind for them. So I think that all that stuff goes a long way to really building that teaming atmosphere, which is super important to being successful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know on countless days, number of days that, someone, way out at this one location, maybe over in somewhere Charleston, was having an issue. Well, if we're all talking about it, and, the person brings up, well, somebody down here in Sarasota says, you know what, I had that same problem, let's not solve it right here because, right, we
Yeah.
got 30 people, but I will call you right after this and I'll help you with that
Yeah.
challenge. So, and you had to manage it tightly, right? You got 30 people. You can't go on for 2 hours every day. It had to be 15, 20 minutes. And of course, I provided feedback to say, hey, look, don't tell me everything that you did. Don't tell me that, you were in a meeting for 2 hours. Tell me the accomplishments, the challenges, right, in a brief statement, and then what your plan is for tomorrow. And over time, people got the hang of it. It got really fluid. And I mean, we'd start at 5 and we would end by 5:20 every day. So
Yeah, that's a great example. Great example. Yeah, I mean, building the team, the people aspect of the methodology there, people process technology is so huge. What are some other things? You talked about multiple partners, and I'm guessing in this M&A space where you're picking up different environments, and different investments that have been made by the different companies along the way. And is there some kind of maybe is standardization important? Like, making sure you got the right controls in place, and not really just accommodating everything that's out there, which, we know what that leads to. It's just a lot of complexity. But thoughts on that, John? Yeah.
no, great. I got a couple of points in that space. So one organization in the same space, right? This private equity eye care space I worked for back in 2017, 2018, 2019. In that particular organization, they made some decisions as a business and as leadership to not necessarily standardize on the same EMR and practice management system. That made it really hard to grow the practice, especially from a technology standpoint. From 50 locations to 100 plus. Every practice, every group of practices had a different EMR and practice management system, and that was the plan, right? So really hard to run a business that way. We were doing a lot of bringing data together, across 17 or 18 different EMRs. Again, made it very challenging. So that's a problem in the standardization world. When I came on to this other organization in 2020, they made the decision, you know what, we're going to standardize our practice management system and EMR, and which was one of the reasons why I had decided to come on board, because I totally agree with that. Now, as we started to put together the process for bringing on a new practice, and a practice could be multiple locations, it could be a single location, but when we bring on a new practice, what are the things that we want to standardize, right? So that supporting, an organization that has 60, 70, 100 locations, supporting it is easier. So we made a list and we said, hey, we want to standardize the practice management system, the EMR. We want to standardize email. We want to standardize the network, Active Directory, our intranet, where we store our files. We want to standardize workstations, right? Let's not replace everything, right? That gets expensive, but to the extent that we come in and we find old equipment, let's have a standard that we're going to move folks to, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that 60, 70% of the organization is using the same type of equipment. Let's standardize the telephones. Let's standardize the service desk, right? How do we support this organization? Let's not have pockets of support doing things 10 different ways. And gets down to standardizing data circuits and printers and site security. So in all of that, and there's 10 more.
yeah.
What was really interesting, kind of to your point about leveraging partners. Well, all those things that I just listed, there's not one organization that can do that, can transition all of that, or help you move all of that over. Even if you looked at Accenture or Deloitte, right, they're going to have a hard time doing all of those things. And so, if they can't do it, then definitely a smaller IT organization is going to be challenged.
Sure.
So, what we set out to do was really find those partners that were really good at certain things. So,
Mm-hmm.
we had a partner for practice management conversion, right, going from one to the other. We had a different partner to help with EMR, because they're different systems. And we had a different partner for email and Active Directory. We kind of combined those, right, the whole O365
Sure.
world. We had a different partner for infrastructure. Well, here's Mobius, right? You guys took that piece of it, and then when you dive deeper into that, there are components that we want to standardize, right? Let's standardize the type of network equipment that we're buying, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really challenging in today's world, right? To buy new equipment and chip shortages and all the other
Sure.
things. But figuring out ways to standardize that, and standardizing some of these other standardized service desk companies. So really bringing those partners, and it's challenging to hey, we're going to convert this practice. We got to go through these, I'll bring up the 38 steps. There's nothing special about 38. I just picked that number. We got to go through these 38 steps, but I've got I'm going to say 8 different vendors, taking certain steps in that process. And so coordinating that, standardizing the way, and being able to work together was really critical. Again, coming back to that daily call, all of those partners were on that same daily call. This was not just a call for internal staff, right? This was a call for all staff that were working to advance, the M&A activity, if you will.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts around, in that M&A process? You're picking up a company, right, and trying to bring them into the fold. I mean, they're used to having kind of maybe a white glove service, and now you've got a much bigger organization with multiple responsibilities and providers. And uh, how does that, how do you navigate that? Is it communication, ensuring they're getting the same level of service and even better, and doing that at a much better cost rate? I mean, talk through that, John, because I'm sure that's a big part of getting people to a good place there, right? When they're coming into the fold.
It really is, and it is much larger than just IT, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
in this M&A world, right, there's, HR, there's finance, there's accounting, there's, all those other services, and you start getting into the operations of, a clinic, you got the nurses and the physicians. So you got lots of different components that all have that, same question or same point that you made. How do these practices get comfortable with this transition? And a lot of that is handled, upfront in the initial discussions, right? And the discussions are handled by, senior leaders and the physicians, right? That's typically where they start. Hey, let me get a physician that's, already been converted, already part of the new organization. Let me get that physician, go talk to this other physician because there's a trust level, because,
gotcha.
the physician in the new organization can say, hey, I've been there, right? And here's the value, right? And part of the biggest value, at least in the medical world, is, hey, look, you know, don't you want to just focus on delivering healthcare, right? As opposed to, having to deal with HR issues or having to deal with IT issues or having to deal, right? Wouldn't you like to hand that over to, an organization that has this, shared services model, right? That's
Yeah,
the sell. Now, it doesn't always happen perfectly, right? So the implementation of those shared services is not easy, but that absolutely is the model that is being sold and portrayed. But that's how it starts. When you start diving into IT, some of the biggest values we see, especially when you come in and buy a one or two location practice, right? They've traditionally not spent really any money on technology, right? They have really old equipment that is slow and, a few generations behind. And so that's a real value when we come in and say, we're not necessarily going to replace everything, but, to really move you up to our standards, we're going to have to replace, 50% of your workstations. We're going to replace your network. We're going to upgrade um, your internet circuit and maybe even give you some redundancy. We're going to give you some new things and components, and typically people like that, right?
yeah,
Not
yeah.
always the case. Some people just don't like change, but in most cases that I saw, that was a welcomed change. Now you have to do it right, right? You can't go in and totally disrupt them, and if you disrupt them, then you lost your opportunity to bring value.
Right.
Um, but if you have a methodology to it, and then you bring the practice through the process, you communicate throughout the process, and if you're doing that, and I'll say getting their input a little bit, at least understanding their needs and their wants and that kind of thing, then you can do that well. But those are some of the factors that go into the fear of, oh my gosh, you're getting ready to change my world. How is this going to work?
Yeah. Yeah, really just kind of managing, as you talk through that, I'm thinking, as maybe a practice leader, just uh, there's the side of, hey, man, this is great. I'm going to get some new capabilities and updates, and things are going to be good. But then there's also, I'm running my business here, and this I'm concerned because they're going to come in, and maybe I can't do what I need to do. So I could definitely see some anxiety going on, right? On
There it is.
Yeah.
And
So managing, you talked right early on the planning side of that and getting out in front of it and making sure you got the right plan and you're coaching them through the process. And so that's huge. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, we call that the as I number the steps in this process, the double zero is the due diligence process. It's the process, the stuff that happens before they ink the deal, and there's a number of reasons that's a valuable step, some of which you just described there. But another is, for the organization that's purchasing this new practice, being able to understand what you're purchasing, right? What are the risks? What are the costs that you're about to purchase, right? If you go
Yeah.
in and, for example, one of the practices that we went in, um, they had roughly about 200 or so workstations. Well, what we found is we had to replace every single one of them because they were so old that, and the operating systems were such that we could not put them on a centralized domain. In fact, they weren't even on a domain before. So that was it's a big cost, right?
Yeah.
I got to all these workstations. And, from a business person just kind of going and talking to a practice, hey, we're going to purchase you. They might not know to ask that question to get really deep into, okay, exactly what is your, operating system across all your workstations? Well, when we found that out, it was like, oh, okay. So finding those things out early so that you can provide that back to the business and say, you still might want to buy this practice, but just so you have to spend, $100,000 or whatever that number is to buy brand new computers.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, what are your thoughts on just, we talk about IT as an enabler, right, for the business. I mean, what do you suggest or recommend for IT leaders, whether they're a part of this merger and acquisition world or really just trying to get a seat at the table with the business? What do you encourage folks to do? Really get much more knowledge around, what you're in business doing and get around the business leaders in the organization and really understand that, and then leverage your expertise from a technology perspective and over time, you're getting some wins along the way. I mean, just trying to get some of your insight on what's worked for you on top, kind of on topic for us today, right?
No, you bet. It is so critical. In fact, one of the reasons why I started my company 4 years ago, but now I'm, running it full time. And, we're still a, small, medium business. So I have to wear a lot of hats from marketing, sales, finance, right, HR, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I can do that, because as an IT leader, right, we support every nook and cranny in a business, whether it's a healthcare business or whether it's, whatever business, we're supporting every nook and cranny, every department because everybody uses technology. Everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a computer. Everybody, has some type of communication device. Everybody needs the internet. You need a network, right? All these components, you need an application, you need reports, you need data. All those things are needed. And so, as whenever I've been brought into a new, role, and I've played the role as a CIO, so every 2 or 3 years, something changes and I move into a new organization. But one of the first things I do is literally spend, first 2 or 3 weeks going and meeting all of the business leaders. And the business leaders could be, my peers at the C-suite level, or could be a department manager, director, whatever it is, but hit every aspect of the business to understand, one, what do you do, right? And, tell me about your team, show me your org chart. How do you make money, right? And if that department is revenue generating, what are your costs and what are your challenges today, right? Finding out all of that so that I've got a really good understanding of, one, how we can help them, right?
Hmm.
And two, what are their current technology, strategies and problems and what works well, what doesn't work well, so that we can then develop an IT, vision, a strategy, projects, the things that we want to do to go and help each department, right? And so, and then, on top of all that, you build relationships,
Yep.
right? You really want to have great relationships with those people, and I'll say this: technology will absolutely break and fail, and there will be problems. Every position I've ever been in 25 years, that has always been the case. So, again, with that premise, having a good relationship with, a department head or the business or whomever, you know, it, if you've got that good relationship, you're going to get some forgiveness, right?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
everybody knows technologies are going to fail. Now you got to deliver some good to outweigh the bad, but the point is, if you don't have the relationship, then it's not going to be an easy thing to move forward. So having good relationships, understanding the business, and not just, hey, how many computers do you have? What's your application? Dive into it.
Yeah.
What is your purpose for a department? What are you trying to do? What are your goals, right? And then that just frames again all the things you do as an IT department.
I think it comes together just in the bad times, right? You talked about building the relationships, and I think that's so key of going to sit down and talking with the stakeholders and really being sincere about that conversation and understanding where their challenges are, and maybe delivering some short wins or quick wins along the way to knock some of those barriers out of their way and build that rapport. And but it does come down to when something does break, and it will. how
Yep.
quickly you respond, and can they trust you and those kind of things. So I think that's huge as well. I was just going to ask, just from kind of a you're in a situation where you've done some mergers, acquisitions, you've brought some folks on board, you're getting into more of a routine, right, where you've got operations streamlined. Do you leverage your partners? You've got partners in different domains that you're trusted advisors around infrastructure or patient care, whatever the whatever the lane is that they're in. Are you leaning on them quite a bit to understand where technology is going and where you got, they understand what you have today and maybe some challenges that are faced today, and then hey, here's some new things that we want to take we want to take a look at, right? Is that where you're getting a lot of that? And of course, maybe on your own. But how do you keep up with the ever changing environment now that you've maybe standardized on some things? That doesn't mean that's just going to be it forever, right? I mean, there's got to be this ongoing kind of improvement and optimization, right? Talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
No, you bet. And I am a huge fan of again, even in the operations world, right, having a hybrid approach, right? Yeah, I believe in having some really strong internal resources, but I absolutely believe in having really strong partners that in many cases, maybe this is where you were going, those partners are more in tune with technology, where it's going, how it's changing than I would be, or my team might be. And I challenge my team to, stay in touch. But I do that, and I've done this, for 25 years through the relationships, with partners. And I say partners, right? Companies, but also with
Sure.
people, right? Because, many times, people that might not stay at the same company. Okay, cool. Let's keep those relationships. So I'm a huge fan, and I'll give an example here with Mobius, right? So brought Mobius on to help us change out networks, right? Moving from whatever they had, whatever the practice that we were purchasing had, to our standard networking gear. And hey, Mobius, we need you to pre-buy the equipment, right? Because we're moving so fast, and equipment is short, is in high demand, and short. You can't buy it, so go ahead and have some in inventory. Go have it pre-configured as much as you can, so that when we're ready to install it, you guys ship it, and then you guys send resources to go install it. So that's the implementation piece. But then afterwards, hey, I need you to monitor that, right? I need you to watch that thing 24/7 like a hawk, and even remediate things, right? So leveraging that capability, we didn't have a strong network engineer on IT or on our team. So leveraging that, from Mobius was really, really critical. In some other areas too, whether it be email or Azure. We were big users of
Hmm.
Microsoft Azure. Leveraging folks that have that expertise and being able to, okay, maybe from a tier one or tier two standpoint, right? Our team can handle those, but hey, we get into a deep issue. I need a tier 3 resource that really understands the problem and can solve it, quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think just on the yeah, you hit on the technology and looking at maybe the partners for guidance along those lines. But even as you hit on like process and people aspects, as I know for us at Mobius, as we engage and we learn more and more about the business, right? And many times we're replicating that potentially with other, you know, similar organizations, right? So we can start to understand what's going on in the industry and really not only from a technology perspective, but help with the planning stages, help with the process improvements, some of those other things as well, which is it's been really instrumental in us getting to more of those strategic conversations with our customers, as opposed to just saying, hey, we can store some, we can store some equipment for you. Those things are super important too and tactical. And we love helping our customers there, but also kind of helping, over time, we're just going to become closer and closer and add value more from a strategic perspective too, if that makes sense. I don't know if you've witnessed that yourself, but yeah.
It does, and and over time, right? I've developed relationships with a lot of different folks. So when I come into a new situation, right, I lean on those relationships to say, okay, here's what I'm seeing. What do you have? What are you seeing? Right, and you learn right from position to position. But in
Yeah.
terms of coming back to Mobius' situation, when I came on board in the previous organization, we had implemented an Aruba network, right? And so I had experience and some history with the Aruba environment. And so when we were putting that together, right, we talked to our Aruba team and said, hey, we're looking for someone who's really strong in this space. And actually, Tony Wilkins, a guy that has worked for me in the past, he said, hey, contact these folks. I've been working with them. So, those types of relationships are great. And we, architected the solution and, hey, how do we put this together and what's the right process?
Yeah.
So absolutely leveraging partners, from the planning, the strategy, implementation and on into operations.
It's been great working with you for sure. I know we could probably just continue for a few hours on the topic here, right? But we'll
Yeah.
no, really appreciate the insights. Great content for our listeners today. So yeah, we'll one of the things that I just we talk about enabling business outcomes. It's really the goal of all IT organizations today, and
Yeah.
it's so much easier said than done, right? I mean, and any help that that can be provided to help kind of customers or businesses navigate that, IT organizations, always good content to get out there. So really appreciate your sharing your thoughts there and experiences and those kind of things. For the listeners, we hope the information shared today provides some takeaways and has a positive, and you can apply those to your businesses as well. Wanted to just thank the listeners for your continued support of the podcast here. Reach out to Mobius Partners. I'd love to engage with you on some of your transformational efforts as well. John, thank you so much. Appreciate your time
You bet.
today,
Thank you.
insights, and we'll wrap it up. Until next time, everyone, stay safe out there and all the best.